everyone, it's Shari here, and I am going to be making a card today with a sequin background behind a cutout image. Much like this card that I made a little while back, I did the stripes of sequins, I cut out the inside of that word bubble. I'm going to do the same sort of similar thing, and I'm going to be using the Just Thinking of You set. I'm going to be using that cloud image, and then I'm going to be using a sentiment from another Neat and Tangled set that none of you have seen yet, actually. So I'm just showing you the sentiment. I'm not even showing you the whole set. That's why it's already on a block. So I'm going to put my little cloud or thought bubble image on a block here, and I have a standard size card base out of Neenah Solar White cardstock, and then I have a front panel that's cut slightly smaller so that there is a 1/4" mat around, and I'm going to be using this masking paper because I'm going to be stamping this cloud twice and they're going to overlap. So I want to stamp this image on that masking paper and cut it out so that I can mask my cloud and they can overlap and look like one is behind the other. So I'm just going to cut this piece off of the bigger piece and then fussy cut around the image to create my mask. So now I'm going to stamp this image on that front panel of my card, and I'm going to stamp the one that's going to be in front, or on top rather, first, and then I'll know where to put my mask. So I'm going to put it sort of in the bottom left corner down here. And then I'm going to peel off the back from this mask and line it up right on top of that cloud I just stamped. Just like that. And now I can stamp the other cloud, and I'm going to turn my image so that it doesn't look like two clouds that are exactly the same right behind each other. So I'm turning it 180 degrees so that the bumps look slightly different. And I'm just going to stamp that over that masked image. So now I can peel the mask up. And I have my two clouds. Now for my sentiment, it's a long sentiment that says sparkle and shine, but I'm going to break it apart. I'm going to do that by inking rather than cutting my stamp apart because I don't like to cut my stamps apart if I don't have to. So I'm just going to ink up the word sparkle, and I'm going to line it up where I want it, right above this cloud to the left. And I'll clean that ink off. Make sure it's nice and dry, rub it with my hand, and then I'm going to ink up the and shine part. And I'm going to stamp it in the lower right corner. So now I'm going to cut out the inside of these cloud images, and I'm going to be using a craft knife to do this. You could also use scissors if you're more comfortable with it, and cut a slit in the middle of the cloud so you can have a place to get your scissors in there and then go from there. But I'm just going to use a craft knife and go very carefully around these curved edges here. And you're going to get a nice look at my fuzzy hair because it's raining today and everything's kind of fuzzy. But I like to get right over top of it so I can see what I'm doing. And then just take my time and go slowly. So I've cut that first one out, and now I'm going to go in and cut the second one, and it'll leave the part where the two connect right in there because I'm not cutting right on the line, so it's going to work out well. It's going to be a nice portion left in the middle there to keep those images. So now I have my inside parts cut out, and the next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to make our sequin panel. So I'm going to cut a piece that's slightly smaller than this one so that I don't have to worry about lining up the edges or you seeing them at all. It's going to hide behind that panel. And this is the piece that my sequins are going to get glued to. And the first thing I like to do, here's the sequins I'm going to use. I'm going to use a variety of purples and blues, that mermaid's tail, the little green, and the white. So I think these will make nice colors for those clouds. And what I want to do is I always draw a straight line as my guide line to start with. And I'm drawing it with my 45-degree triangle just because I like to start on an angle. It doesn't matter once you get that first line in there, it's going to build off that anyways. And you can just draw it with a pencil. I actually was a little too light and I couldn't even see it that time. But I'm just drawing it in with a pencil. You can go back and erase it if it's too dark, but it's going to hide under those sequins. You're not going to see it anyways. And then I'm going to lay my image on top, and I'm just going to lightly trace kind of the extents of where those bubbles are, just to give myself an idea of where to put my sequins. Because obviously I don't need to fill up that whole piece of paper, only the part that you're going to see. So those are on there as my guides. And to glue on my sequins, I use the Studio Multi-Matte Medium, and I'm just going to squirt it on a scrap piece of paper here, and then I'm going to pour out some of my sequins. So I kind of have my little sequin palette here on this scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to use my tweezers, and what I do is I pick up a sequin just from the side, grab that side of that little cup, and dip it in the multi-matte medium, and then just stick it down right on that line. So I'm starting on that line that I drew, and that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to get a nice straight line of sequins, and then I'll build off that. So once you have your line started, you can build off that just by fitting the next line in between. I mean, you could line them up if you want. You'd get a different look, but this makes it nice and full because you're filling in those holes between the circles. Because they're all pretty much the same size, it goes together pretty nicely, kind of a grid of sequins there. And it takes a little time. This is the most work part right here. Last time I did this, I did it in front of the TV. Just some mindless work. And especially since I'm kind of being random with my colors here. I don't have to quite pay as much attention as I did with the stripes. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to set it aside and let it dry a little. The paper is going to warp some just because of the moisture in the glue, but it'll flatten out pretty good. And it's dry now, and I drew a little arrow telling me which way is up, which you'll see when I flip it back over. But just so that I don't put it upside down and mess up my project. And I'm going to make sure I put a lot of adhesive on the back, on all four sides, a lot through the center, and that'll help hold it down from that warp. There you can see I drew that arrow so I know which way is up, so I can get it oriented right on my card. And I'm going to center it up on that card base. And make sure it's stuck down really well. So I'm going to open it up because it's easier to rub it from the back side than to rub your hand across all those sequins that you spent all that time gluing down. And then you can see the front panel is going to cover it up very nicely and let those sequins shine through. So I'm going to put foam adhesive on all the corners and all the sides and a couple in the middle just because I want it to stand up from those sequins a little. And this way it will be flat. And you won't have to worry about the fact that the sequins are bulkier in the middle than on the sides, and it gives it some nice dimension. So I'm just lining that up in the center of that card base and then making sure all my foam squares are stuck down really well. And then there's the final card. And then I decided I was going to take a little Stardust Stickles and just add a dot to the center of a couple of these sequins. I didn't do all of them, I just did a few. But it adds a little extra sparkle to them, kind of makes them stand out. It's just a little extra added embellishment. You can kind of see it in this picture here. Thanks for watching. Bye.